This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Alrighty, there he is, locked and loaded and ready to go. Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
You know, it's always odd, Big O. We talked about this even last year before the Celtics Game 7. When you're at this one point where you don't know if this season's over or not, it's sort of like no other day. I mean, am I flying to Milwaukee tomorrow? Am I doing player capsules and rounding up the season? Will there be hard questions after this one? Or honestly, Big O, are we just putting this on hold for another week? Because against Milwaukee, it's sort of like the Panthers against the Bruins. Are you just delaying the inevitable? But you know what? Playoffs is still fun. It's still good to get the national buzz, still to be out there. You know what? And playoff Jimmy. If you were to ask me, hey, Ira, give me a proposition on Heat Bucks, for example, I would say, can Jimmy win one game? That's what I'll be looking for. That would be what that series would be about. Can the Heat find a way to get a playoff victory that they couldn't 2 years ago against the Bucks? So it's sort of a time where I think you let everything play out and then you analyze afterwards because you know what? We'll have all of May, all of June, all of July, all of August, plenty of time to analyze it.
Is this a team that is going to go out there and play with that kind of desperation tonight? Because if I'm Jimmy Butler, I've busted my ass for this team and I got to carry them constantly. And that's kind of been the case for a couple of years now. And I'm looking at the daunting task of taking on the Bucks, and yet you're 0-3 against the Bulls this year. And it's almost, if you're Jimmy Butler, you're almost like killing yourself to then get more embarrassed against the Bucks. So I'm wondering how much fight will this team have, and can the Bulls actually take the fight out of them with a quickness? Like if they get out early, does the Heat kind of lose interest early on and say, yeah, we are what we are this year, and we've been what we've been all year long? So I'm just wondering, because I don't know how much fight, how much desperation there truly is with this team at this point now.
As much as it pains me to agree with you and sort of change the tenor of the segment, I agree. I just don't see. You know what? It's interesting. The one thing we've always had as the constant of the Heat is the fight to the Pat Riley, the head in the bucket in Detroit, the every last breath. I don't see that this year. I think this is a team that individual players either had different goals than championship success, that there were divergent goals on this team, that players realized the veterans, the limitations, like sort of like Kyle and Jimmy, like, hey, we know the score. We've seen this game before. We know how it ends. Yeah, I agree with you, Big O. If it starts the way it did against Atlanta, I think you could see capitulation, sort of like the end of that 2006-2007 season, came back from the title, got shellacked by the Bucks on opening night, got to the end against the Bulls in the playoffs, had a game 4, and showed absolutely nothing against the Joakim Noah Bulls because they didn't have it. I am shocked. And we overstate that in sports, that a Miami Heat team could show such little resilience and resolve. I'm not sure that I've seen that many times. I would point to 2006, the end of the Antoine Walker era, and I would point to 2001 when Zoe came back late and they thought it could pull it together and they fell apart against Charlotte, and Pat Riley said, I need to go to coaching playoff school to find out what's wrong with this team. So I would say those are probably the other.
He threw them off because they were in a groove with Mason, and then you went back to the Zoe offense, and then that was a complete, and it took that got him discombobulated, put it that way.
Yeah,
and that one I don't blame. See, my problem here with this specific team right now is I don't see enough dogs, and that's my problem. You know, I know what Shane Battier is going to do. You know, I know what James Posey is going to do. I know what P.J. Brown is going to do. I know what Dan Marley is going to do. I can just go on and name the names.
P.J. Tucker. P.J. Tucker's another name you should throw in there.
Tucker is one of the recent ones. You know, where there was a quality of a player that it was different. They had an edge. And as much as Tyler is a fun player to watch, there is not a dog in him that he can then get physical.
I agree.
And get with you and do something defensively. And then Bam. While Bam, you know, as I've always called him, a super role player, he started out the season trying to be that aggressive guy, but then that faded as the season went on. And so then you wonder, then it's not in your DNA, because if it's in your DNA, you're going to be Patrick Beverley no matter what, dude. No matter who's around you, you're always going to be Patrick Beverley. And to me, that's what either you're wired that way or you're not. You're not going to take the son of a bitch out of Zoe. You're just not. Whether you like it or not, you're not going to take it out of him, because he's going to bring that nastiness to the court every single night. And to me, I don't see a bunch of guys that Gabe Vincent doesn't show it to me. Lowry doesn't show it to me. Not anymore at this age. Bam doesn't show it to me consistently. I just, there's not a lot of guys that I can actually point to and say, there are some dogs out there with Jimmy Butler. I'm only seeing Jimmy Butler as the dog, nobody else. And that's really ultimately my problem. And I think that's the problem in the front office. They have kind of gotten away from the kind of DNA and the player that they used to bring in. And it's just not the same caliber player, man.
Well, it's interesting. I wrote a column 2 weeks ago about, now that Udonis steps aside, who steps in as leader. And I wrote that while it's not in his nature, and he tends to be off on his own with his own people, I thought Jimmy Butler had to be. And I got some pushback from people in the Jimmy Butler camp who said, whoa, Ira, this guy does everything for you already. This guy is the ultimate dog on the court. This guy is an every last breath guy leaning over the stanchion in the bubble against the Lakers. And now you want him to do this cartoonish thing about leading like Udonis? Enough. The guy does enough. But here's my problem, Orlando Alzugaray. I agree with you. Bam Adebayo's ultimate goal this season was getting a lot of shots. And even after last game, and I swear I was going to smack myself in the face when he's sitting up there in the podium talking about how they have to get him the ball more. And I'm like, read the room here. Maybe not. Tyler. Yeah, exactly. Tyler Hero's ultimate goal was to start. He got to start. So when I look down this roster, if Kyle Lowry still had game, I do think he can push guys. He did for Toronto for a decade, but he's at a different stage of his career right now, and that's the problem. I don't see when Eric Spoelstra walks out of that locker room, and the only guy talking right now is someone who plays not at all in Udonis Haslem. There's not another player from the core rotation who goes, bring it in here, guys. LeBron still was that kind of player when he was there. You're right, Shane Battier had some of that on a more, say, intellectual level, but a different approach, but he had that. PJ Tucker last year, when Eric Spoelstra got into it with Jimmy Butler, was the one who sat in front of us and said, come on, guys. This is the NBA. We got this taken care of. We'll be fine. When they lost PJ, they lost some of that also. That one guy who could be the connective tissue leadership-wise can't be a coach. Coach gives a speech and leaves the locker room. Can't be a team president and Pat Riley. He sits on the end of the court, removed from players on game day. It has to be someone from within. And if you go player to player on this team, and you're going to them, is the single most important thing for you right now at this point in your life winning an NBA championship? I'm not sure out of besides Jimmy Butler, if there's a single player in the locker room who would answer yes. If the other players aren't worried about contracts because they're free agents, roles, all-star game. Bam wanted to be an all-star. That mattered most to him. Wanted to be defensive player of the year. You need the guy who gets him in the locker room, slams the goddamn door and goes, shut the F up. It's about winning. Tonight, it's about the Bulls. Let's not worry about the Bucks. Let's not worry about the summer. Big O, I get the sense that these guys are, and I hate to say it, because it's the harshest thing you could say as an NBA critic. I think these guys are halfway to Cancun.
I agree. That's what it looks like to me, because they look defeated because they can't go out and win and force it and impose their will. And just to add to your comment, when Bam is sitting there going, well, we got to figure out a way to get the ball to me more, the aforementioned Alonzo Mourning, you think Alonzo ever got to the podium at that point and said, no, dude, in the middle of the first quarter, he'll look over to people with that scowl and they'll all go, oh, shit, we better get Zoe the ball. That's all that had to.
But even more than that, I want to give you a different point here, Big O, because I know you like the historical perspective. When Glenn Rice was in the Heat locker room in his early seasons, at one point after a loss, he complained about not getting the ball enough. From the other side of the locker room in Miami Arena, Keith Askins came across the room and almost killed Glenn Rice because he didn't get it. Because the moment that Keith Askins arrived from Alabama to the Miami Heat, his thing was team, togetherness, and winning. And some players just don't always get that. And this reminds me of that moment also. And Jimmy can't be that. He's just not that guy. Jimmy has been on his own in Chicago. He embraced Dwayne Wade. They were a clique. Remember, there was a whole breakup at the clique, him and Rondo, batting heads. In Milwaukee, I mean, he tormented Karl Anthony Towns. When he later played him, he called him soft as baby you-know-what. In Philadelphia, he mocked Tobias Harris. That's not who Jimmy is. Jimmy is an MFer on the court, but unfortunately, Jimmy's an MFer off the court also. That's just his abrasive personality. So your locker room leader can't also have an abrasive personality, so you accept him for what he is. But there are many, many non-Miami Heat types in this locker room. And this BS of hardest working, toughest minded, blah, 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 please buy the t-shirt, it didn't fit this team. It has some other teams recently, not this team.
No, because they don't have that DNA. And there's too many of those guys on this team. And that's my point with Riley, that he's got to get back to finding the SOBs. That's what he needs on this roster. And that's what Jimmy needed around him. He needed more SOBs. And, I'm really disappointed in Bam this year. And I don't know how many, it's like either you're that or you're not. And you show that right away in the NBA. It's not a matter of, hey, in year 7, he became that guy. No, dude, it's usually within the first couple of years. So with Bam, what's going to happen with him? Like,
you know what, Big O? If I can interrupt you for a second, you know what Bam is? And there's nothing wrong with this in life. He's a soft-spoken gentleman. There's nothing wrong with that. You will have guests on who are soft-spoken gentlemen. They'll bore your audience. You're going, I need a little bit more. Same thing with Bam. He is a good person. He is a good son. He is a good gentleman. But this is an SOB enterprise. You need that. Look at the Bulls. The Bulls were wandering this year, and then that SOB, Patrick Beverley, who to this day claims that he will kill me one day, comes into the Chicago locker room, and everything changes. Because sometimes you need a bunch of that. We could see other teams that have lost in the playoffs that didn't have that, and that's a reason also. God bless Bam. He's a talented player. He's committed to defense. He's offensively skilled. He's a star. I don't think he's overpaid because everyone in the NBA is overpaid. But again, the difference between star and superstar is what defines championship teams.
So what happens tonight?
You know what? My heart says I think the Heat can pull it out because I keep expecting them to turn it on and having that moment. But you know what? When I saw the line of Heat 5.5, I said, if I had to bet my house, bet my family, bet something significant, I would take the 5.5 points. It's a crazy line.
I don't know. By the way, Vegas has been doing this for a couple of months now. And on our show here, we go against the Heat every time and take all the points, and you constantly win.
The Heat are minus 20 against the line this season, negative 20. They have lost against the line 20 more times than they have won. One of the best propositions in sports, which tells you everything, is betting against the Heat. But Vegas and the wise guys, just like Orlando, Alzugaray, and Ira, keep talking about, well, it's got to change. There's got to be a moment. This season might just go off like it did 2 years ago against Milwaukee, where it never changes. And then you come on and you tell us they are what we thought they were.
Yeah. And by the way, it's disgraceful when I get people that say want to fire Pat Riley. I mean, this
is not a Riley thing. It's not a Spoelstra thing. It's a roster thing.
But at the end, Riley has earned the right to fix it, to correct it, to do whatever he can to correct his problems, his decisions, whatever it is. And I get it. Look, we got a lot of young people. A whole generation has gone through since we last went through something like this. We did the same shit with Shula. And everybody that came after Shula wasn't better than Shula on his worst day. So what I would tell young Heat fans that are spoiled, rotten, okay, after a quarter century of exceptional, leadership, calm the hell down. Him and the Arison family have earned the right to fix this mess, okay? But, this shit about, oh, no, the games pass Riley by. No, dude, we all make good and bad decisions. They've made a couple of bad decisions here. They don't make a lot of bad decisions in 25 years. Relax. Give
And
them
you know what? And next season, the Damian Lillard Heat will be much better.
Oh, God. My problem with that one is I just think others will have better deals on the table and those kind of things.
Oh,
And
others have had better deals on the table for Jimmy, and the Heat did it.
Here, Lillard and Butler will not have enough dogs around them to get it done too, and that's my other problem.
But you'll be dog squared instead of dog singular, and that alone will lift the team's outlook and ceiling.
Good math on your part. There you go. All right, follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat and catch his exceptional work there at the South Florida Sun Sentinel. He'll be drinking up a storm by the end of the night, writing up his story.
It's going to be really interesting Monday in our Acura Pembroke Pines report, because I could be in one of two places. I could be calling you from the arena on Pack Up Your Locker Room Day and the final comments, or I could be calling you from Milwaukee after Game 1 against the Bucks and seeing what's going on. So you talk about a moment of the unknown. I mean, honestly, the way the Fort Lauderdale airport is so backed up, I have a backup plan of driving to Fort Myers tomorrow to fly to Milwaukee just to get out of here. So everything is up in the air.
You'll do everything to avoid the Miami airport is what you're saying.
No, believe me, I checked there also. There's no flights because they've shipped everyone from Fort Lauderdale to Miami. Right. There's nothing out of West Palm. So wave to me on Alligator Alley as I'm driving like half hungover from tonight. Not that kind of hungover, just tired. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, the next 24 hours in many ways will be defining and shaping the narrative of the 2022-23 Miami Heat. Does it matter enough for them to make it be a difference? We shall see.
We'll see what kind of heart and determination they have tonight. All right, follow them on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat, and you got to subscribe to the South Florida Sun Sentinel and support Ira and all the great writers there. Ira, have a great week and enjoy the basketball tonight.
Acura Pembroke Pines Monday from somewhere. Thanks, Big O.
You got it.